record? There we go. Okay.
But if you
There should be enough space on here.
you keep talking and rambling.
That's what we do, man.
I know, but then you brag about how much time.
Yes. Yes. That's
The pain. The pain.
I would go ahead and do the countdown, but let's face it, we've already started this video. Back in the day when every neighborhood had a shopping center, in the back of that shopping center was the video store, and in the back of the video store were the videos that stood the test of time. These are the back rack videos. I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
And this week we are talking about the topic of refund movies. This is a little something we've been yammering about refund movies over on our other show, Geeking Out, for ages. And quite frankly, it's about time we devoted an episode of this to it. Refund movies, okay. There are 4 types of movies, okay? The movies you really, really, really like Jaws. Everybody likes Jaws, okay? Everybody likes Raiders of the Lost Ark. Every geek worth his salt likes Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then there are the movies you're kind of indifferent about, like, for me, it would be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I know it's blasphemy to you, but I'm indifferent about it.
He's never seen it.
The movie, then there's the movie you really don't like, say, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And then there are the movies that are just so horrid, so disgusting, such a waste of time and effort and money. You want your money back from the admission you had to pay and compensation for time served. So that's what the refund movies are. Chris and I have a few tales and movies to talk about here. Chris, you want to fire one off here, because I know we've mentioned 3 just on the episodes of Geeking Out. We've already gotten a list of 3 going.
Yes. Of course, we're doing top 5. So I figured we go from, least, and number 1 be like the worst of the worst of the worst.
Understand, all of these are putrid. There is no saving redemption on none of these. But there can be a little semblance or a little intelligence to the order. So.
Yes, and a couple of mine are definitely brand new movies that literally just came out.
They dropped. They didn't even drop in there. They plopped in the theaters.
They plopped.
They did plop.
A lot of people liked them. A lot of people hated them. I hated both of them. But I will go for the first one. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is just Indiana Jones in the retirement home and somebody else doing all the lifting, who was annoying. That movie, oh my goodness. I to this day, I still think that there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies, and The Last Crusade was so good that it ended right there, and The Last Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and The Dial of Destiny do not even exist. I'm sticking to that. And I think a lot of fans are on the same side as me. So.
Yeah. Well, we both have on our list an Indiana Jones movie. Mine was Crystal Skull, because Indy in a refrigerator. Caught in a nuclear blast, and because there was so much lead in this ancient refrigerator, it just throws him up and throws him across the countryside. He lands, doesn't liquefy from the force of impact, by the way. You're done. Bye-bye. There's number 5 for me. So we each got an Indiana Jones movie that we absolutely hate.
Yeah.
And it's the last 2.
I got a funny about the Indiana Jones thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I went to watch The Dial of Destiny, hated it, and 2 of my friends wanted to go watch it, and I told them, I was like, no, you do not. I told them how bad it was. They was like, well, we kind of still wanted to go see it. I was like, oh man, I really don't want to go watch it again, but I'm also interested in seeing your all's faces when we do. We came out of that movie, and they both was like, Chris, from now on, we're going to listen to you. We're going to listen to you. And I was like, yep.
Well, to be fair, the movie was so bad it's like grading on a curve. I mean, it's just so. This is so easy to just say stay away from the film. So, Dial of Destiny, yeah, it was. We were talking about what a steaming pile it was a year and a half before it released, because they were still doing reshoots like 2 months before it was released. And the only saving grace the movie had, Harrison Ford must have been paid a fortune to go back and do those reshoots. So, okay. So we've each got one in. Chris, what's next on your list?
All right, coming in at number 4 on my list is Blue Beetle. That's right, the newest superhero movie from DC, Blue Beetle. Listen, here's the thing. Like, I know that there's some bad superhero movies. Some of them, there's a couple that just popped into my head that is not on this list because we're only doing top 5. But trust me, Schumacher's Batman, okay? Bat nipples. All those two that he did, they are horrible, but I at least had a little bit of fun because I could make fun of those movies. This one was just so horrible, and I'm hearing so many people saying, "Oh my goodness, it is such a good movie. It's such a good origin story movie," and I'm just like, "What is wrong with you people? Are you brain dead?" Like, Blue Beetle was horrible. That's all I want to say about that. It was horrible.
Well, there is some little crossover between our lists because I do have put Blue Beetle in. I put it.
Really?
We did in the last episode a couple of weeks ago, we did an episode of Geeking Out where we reviewed Meg 2 and Blue Beetle, and
Meg 2 was horrible, but I had fun.
That one you can make fun of. But
I have fun.
I went on a full-scale rant on it because I got triggered by how bad the movie was. I mean,
that's true, you did.
Honestly, Cheech and Chong couldn't get high enough to giggle at anything in this movie. And it was so insulting to Hispanics from start to finish. I actually felt bad for my farmer's tan watching that film. I would actually put it a little bit higher. Instead of at 4, I put mine at 2. I would say Blue Beetle is the second worst refund movie I've ever seen. And that is saying something because I got some stink. I just picked Crystal Skull, so that's the low-hanging fruit. It only gets worse from here. So we'll go ahead. We'll both agree Blue Beetle. I'll let you go on to your next one there.
All right. Number 3 is a movie called The Gray Zone. If you've never heard of this movie, that's fine. This movie has a bunch of very huge actors in it, like Harvey Keitel and all that stuff. This movie is actually really good. It's based off of a true story as well. It is about. All right, so the movie is about a concentration camp, okay, and you got a couple of men who are in charge of taking the bodies that were left over from being gassed, and they got a pile of bodies up, and they find this teenage girl who somehow survived. Okay? She's like 14, 15 years old. She somehow survived. So the guys decide to hide her from the Nazi soldiers. So the whole movie is about them trying to hide her, keep her safe, and all that stuff. The reason why this movie messed me up, okay? Because I know it's hard to have a happy ending to something so gruesome, but this movie, I absolutely just, it kicked me in the nuts, okay? At the end of the movie, they find out about the girl. They get the guys, and Harvey Keitel is basically the head honcho over the concentration camp. And he's telling the girl, there's the gate. You're allowed to leave. But before she leaves, they shoot every single man that helped her in the back of the head. So she's standing there crying and stuff like that. And she walks out the gate. And she's standing there at first because there's the line. All she has to do is step over it. As soon as she sets foot over the line, she gets shot in the back. Dies. In the movie. That is how the movie ended.
Yay! So a happy ending.
That movie messed me up so much that I was just like to this day, that whole thing is burned into my head. I cannot get over that. I know it's gruesome. War is gruesome, and it's not all rainbows and
Grins and
sunshine.
giggles, yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I felt I was depressed. I was left depressed. I was pissed off as well because I was like, I've never seen a movie ended like that. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? I was like angry. And yeah, so that's on my list. Number 3, The Gray Zone. Yeah.
So, well, on mine, okay, now we agreed on Blue Beetle. We both agreed Blue Beetle just stank on a cracker.
Yes.
But I put it higher than you did. You gave it, what was it? You gave it number 4. I said it was second. So let me go back to my number 4. I actually had a little bit of, I'm still wavering about this because I actually do think about these things. I know it don't seem like it sometimes, but I do. Originally, I was going to call 1941. I don't know if you remember 1941. It's just going to be honorable mention now.
Spielberg?
Steven Spielberg, quote, comedy with John Belushi of all people. What a hot mess. This is like anti-Airplane. Okay, where Airplane is funny, 1941 is not. But 1941 could not make the cut because I didn't have room for it because I had worse things to watch. Or worse things I have watched. So 1941 just gets honorable mention. Okay, and on 4th, I'm going to put in The Beloved's number 1 pick for worst refund movie of all time, Wild Wild West, with Will Smith. Will Smith as James West. The only understand this movie is so horrifically bad from start to finish. The only thing that actually lasted at all from this film was 1, the stench of robot spiders, and 2, the Wild Wild West song that Fresh Prince did, and it still gets airplay today. Him and Drew, and I think it was Drew Hill who saved it more than anything. But it was that was a stinker. And the worst part is Wild Wild West was actually kind of a good show, but they remade it. Had to have the giant spider because what was it? They're going to have Superman fight the giant spider.
Yeah,
and
you can hear Kevin Smith talk about that.
Yes,
on the Evening with Kevin Smith. You can find that.
I decided to throw Chris a bone with the Kevin Smith mention, but it's Wild Wild West was, and the worst part is there are 3 worse movies in my opinion. So
Yeah.
that is a shame. Chris, what do you got for your number 2?
Well, before we get to number 2, when it comes to honorable mentions, I'd also want to throw in there Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel. Yeah, that's enough said on that one. That was horrible.
Yeah, honestly, out of all of the Disney movies, that was the one I think that came out right after Endgame, didn't it?
Yeah, because that was the next.
That was supposed to start Phase 4 and pretty much doomed.
No.
Marvel
came after. It came before Endgame because she was supposed to take on Thanos.
Oh, that's right. You're right. She was supposed to go to Thanos and save the day.
Yeah, that movie was just.
But well-deserved oblivion, and they just have to double down with the Marvels coming out this fall, which I have a feeling we may have to update this list by this time next year.
I don't even know if I want to go see it. I think I'll just wait for the word of mouth. And
Well, I've already told you I've got a full scale embargo on all Marvel anything.
Yeah.
And I think the Agatha Harkness project for Disney Plus on it's like its third or fourth name by now because they can't decide what is the worst possible title they could give this show.
well, remember they got no writers right now, so
They didn't have any writers before.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's right. Okay, Chris, number 2.
All right. Number 2 is First Man. First Man is a biopic movie based off of Neil Armstrong and all the ones who set foot on the moon for the first time. This movie, I remember when the trailer came out, I was hoping that this would be a newer version of Apollo 13 in a way, because Apollo 13, whether if you like it or not, Apollo 13 was a really good movie. It was a really good movie. I thought it was amazing. So I was kind of hoping the same thing for First Man. The First Man stars Ryan Gosling as Buzz Aldrin, I believe. And this movie was so boring. And the reason why it was boring is because the dialogue that Ryan Gosling had was probably about 3 pages long. And I'm not exaggerating on this. This movie had so much silence during the film that I could hear the person behind me chewing on their... Not the person behind me, I take that back. There was like 2 people in the theater, okay? And this guy was like on the top row, and I heard him munching on his popcorn. That's how much silence that this movie had. Silence, lack of acting, lack of emotion, and there was nothing exciting in this movie at all. It was a disaster.
Now, was this before or after he did Green Lantern? You remember?
No, Ryan Reynolds did.
Ryan Reynolds did Green Lantern. Well, then who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Oh.
Ryan Gosling is the Ken from Barbie.
So who's the one who hosts the American Idol? Who hosts American Idol? That's how little we care about First Man. I can't keep these little nobodies straight.
American Idol?
Who hosts American
Ryan
Idol?
Seacrest?
Ryan Seacrest.
He's
See,
not
too
even
many
an actor.
Ryan.
He's
Ryan.
not even an actor.
He's a better actor than Ryan Gosling. Okay, so your number 2 is First Man. Okay, we already know my number 2 is Blue Beetle. My number 3. Okay, so I'm still catching up.
I know who the number 1 is.
Number 3, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually think this is worse than Wild Wild West. Hannibal. The sequel to Silence of the Lambs.
Really?
Silence of the Lambs was the one movie that set up a hook that showed, okay, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the film, it shows that the serial killer Hannibal Lecter, who is one of the central characters in the entire film, he's on the loose, he's hunting down the guy who put him in prison, and he's somewhere in Central America. Perfect hook, perfect story. You've gotten to know Hannibal Lecter perfectly. He is a fascinating character. He's like that on the level with like the Joker and Doctor Doom and all these really high-class Darth Vader style, really classy villains and everything. So you got all this great hook, and you're left with Jodie Foster standing there on a hung up phone. Doctor, doctor, doctor. So what do they do for the sequel? They do a prequel. They did a prequel of Hannibal Lecter. Bad storytelling, bad script. Poor old Anthony Hopkins stuck in the middle of it. And I don't blame him. I blame everybody else around him. Understand, the guy who plays Leland Stottlemyre was in Silence of the Lambs. He could have been a better lead in Hannibal than what we got. So, for me, Hannibal, second worst stinker. Well, no, third worst stinker because Blue Beetle is the second worst stinker. That brings us down to our Big Chief number one. Greatest floating, burning dumpster fires in cinematic history. Chris, what's your number one?
This has to be the most stupidest, worst, dumbest piece of crap I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
I already knew what my number one was.
Yeah.
Before I even made the list.
Yeah.
This movie is called, and by the name alone, you will be like, well, that does sound like a piece of crap. Freddy Got Fingered is number one.
I actually blocked that one out of my memory.
I wish I could.
About it.
I wish I could. That is the worst movie I have ever seen in my entire life. Freddy Got Fingered stars Tom Green. How this guy ended up dating Drew Barrymore at one point, I have no idea.
How Tom Green wound up in front of a camera is beyond me.
I have no idea. This guy has no talent.
He is like a cinematic black hole. He just sucks all the charisma out of anything he's in.
I'm glad it was just a phase because nobody knows who he is no more. You guys probably don't even know who he is. But anyways.
Tom Green and Andy Dick.
Oh.
there's your pairing for the there's Dumb and Dumberest right there.
Freddy Got Fingered is about a guy who still lives with his parents. He dreams to be a cartoonist, okay? He even admires a certain cartoonist. And the whole story is about him trying to become a cartoonist. That's pretty much the whole story of the movie. Along the way, things happen. Stupid things happen. Like he falls in love with a narcoleptic who is also crippled, I think. Can't remember all of that. But there's like moments this is the thing that they find funny. A friend of his breaks his leg where the bone is sticking out of his skin, right? He says, oh, first things first, we have to clean the wound. So what does he do? He gets down and starts licking the bone that is sticking out of his skin. Ha!
That's a laugh, right? Please don't go any further.
Oh no! There's one more scene, right? He goes and sees his favorite cartoonist guy, whatever it is, and he says, "What you're missing on getting into your characters. You have to get into the character, right?" So along the way, he ends up finding a dead cow or dead deer, I can't remember, on the side of the road. So he remembers what the guy told him to get into his character. So what does he do? He takes the dead animal and puts it on him, and he goes, that's supposed to be funny. That's the type of jokes throughout the entire movie. It is absolutely stupid. And what kills me about this movie is that there is actually famous actors in this movie, and I'm trying to figure out, have they been blackmailed?
Yes.
That's the only reason why I think that they're in this movie is that they were blackmailed. Somebody had something on them and be like, you got to be in this movie or else. And they were like, okay.
That would explain a lot of Tom Green's career. It really would.
So, yeah, Freddy Got Fingered, stay away from that movie. I beg you.
Chris's number one refund movie of all time. Now it's time for my number one. Okay. What's the one film series I have grown to hate more than any other film series, Chris? He's got to think this.
Star Wars?
Star Wars. Why do I hate Star Wars? Let me count the ways. Let me count the ways. Let's take everything that's not The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Let's take the 3 sequel movies, and I'll throw in the 3 prequel movies. For me, the only good Star Wars was the first one, and it's called Star Wars, not A New Hope. Star Wars, and the first half of Empire Strikes Back. That's it. Everything else sucks. But they're with the 3 sequel movies that we both absolutely. You liked it better than I did, but I was like, none of them stood up to the test of time very well. The 3 sequels, the 3 prequels, all the crap Disney Plus shows. My number one worst refund movie was a movie I didn't even pay for because I saw it, the beloved saw it, I think you saw it. We showed it for Christmas. Yeah. We showed it for Christmas one year. It was the Star Wars Holiday Special. Understand, George Lucas made that, okay? That is George Lucas from start to end. That is all George Lucas. That's George Lucas's fault. It has B. Arthur in it. That's all I need to say. Oh, and a perverted Wookiee.
Yeah. The perverted Wookiee.
The nastiest, ugliest Wookiee family. Oh, the whole race looks like overgrown teddy bears, and they found these 3 ugly things. And I swear to you, this must have been what they based Donkey Kong Country on.
Oh my goodness!
Because if you actually take stills of Chewbacca's family and compare it to the apes in Donkey Kong Country, you will find parallels all up and down this. Oh, hideous! And of course, now this was made in like 1979, I think.
Yeah,
79. Something like that. It was after the first one came out, before the second one. But this was to cash in on because everybody wanted Star Wars everything. It hasn't been seen since. I don't know if it was ever actually officially released. It may have gotten a brief release on VHS, but
I'm pretty sure you can watch it for free on YouTube.
Oh, you can find it on YouTube. That's where we found it.
So
no, actually we didn't get it on YouTube. You can get it on Riff Tracks, where they talk all over it and just sit there, and that is the only way you can watch this film is Riff Tracks, where Mike and the guys are sitting there just doing Mystery Science Theater style riffing on this horrific event. And like I said, the worst part is it's George Lucas from start to finish, including calling it holiday, because George Lucas didn't want to call it a Christmas special, even though the network basically begged him to call it a Christmas special. No, we need to be more inclusive in 1979. So don't come telling me that George Lucas is deserving of any sympathy whatsoever. F that guy. And he was also one of the producers on 1941, so F him twice. And for Crystal Skull, F him thrice. Frickin' George.
Yeah.
Anyway, I figured by the time we got this episode done, we would be so angry at Hollywood, we'd probably just rage quit. So, just like you should if you actually dumb enough to sit down and watch any of these films.
Yeah, you guys will, by the way, due to the fact that the news in the entertainment is like kind of slow right now, especially with the writer's strike and stuff like that. So we might be covering a whole lot more on the back rack and other things.
We'll have some short duty episodes coming up too. Coming up at back rack, I'm working right now. We're going to be doing a series. If you had watched Geeking Out this week, like you should have, because you're good little boys and girls.
Yes.
You would know that I'm currently working on some back rack videos. We're going to look at the history of Saturday morning cartoons. We're going to do 4 episodes. We're going to pick a few. We're going to look at some of the best shows from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. All right, 5 episodes, and the 90s, because that's when Saturday morning TV pretty much died, was in the 90s. And boy, did it go off on it. Really, I would say Saturday morning TV went off a cliff. But I mean, because it had reached such a great height and then just stopped dead. But we'll talk about it when we get into the history of Saturday morning cartoons coming up on back rack videos. Chris, final thoughts?
Don't go watch any of the movies that we mentioned.
No, don't. This is clearly just for informative purposes only. Yes. There is no entertainment purposes here at all.
Yeah. So if you're like switching through channels and you see one of the movies that we mentioned and you're just like, oh, I wonder what this is about.
Don't blame us.
Don't.
And if you have refund movies that that just annoy the hell out of you.
Yes.
By all means, comment down below. Leave us a comment wherever you are.
Yes.
Or we actually are still on, is it Twitter, is it X, whatever it is, at Who, What, Where. Use the hashtag refund movie and tell us what your worst movies of all time would, the ones you want the money back on. So
Yeah, let us know what your movie pick is of you wish
We-
you had your money back.
we are still all over social media. I'm not just completely disgusted with it yet, but I've gotten this close. So talk about wanting a refund. So until next time, I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
Y'all be kind.
Rewind.
Ty.